Today, we are going to talk about disappointments and pet peeves in a marriage.
A very real topic. We can feel it. We can feel it. It's real. It happens. So, what are some of yours, sweetie? What are some pet peeves or things that really can be disappointing or like you feel let down in marriage?
Well, to answer that, I have to talk about when I was growing up. When I was younger, of course, several years, what would happen is my mom, my brother, and I, we would plan something. Actually, my mom and my brother would be planning something, and then they will share it with me, and I will be very excited. Wow, we're going to do this, wherever it is, whether going to the movies or whether going out to park or wherever. I would be very excited. And then when it comes to the last minute, they would say, no, we are actually not going today. It looks like either it is not available or we have other things to do or something comes up.
Oh,
And I used to feel like heartbroken at the time because I grew up in a poor family and there were very few instances where we would actually do stuff because we would have money. But then when that doesn't happen, it would feel like my heart is crushed. And I think because of that, even now I have that impacted me when we plan stuff and then all of a sudden we change the plans in the last minute or we decide not to do. It reminds me of all those instances that I went through when I was a kid. People might feel like it is not that big of a deal, but for me it is, and it has been very affecting me. It has been affecting me a lot. And of course, I need to grow out of it as well because I am flexible when it comes to a lot of things. But when it comes to something that has been built up for days, weeks, or even months, and then all of a sudden to find out that I cannot do it or the plan is cancelled, it definitely has an impact in me.
wow. Yeah, I remember one day that we were just gonna go to a store close by, I think in the morning, and then it was like, oh, maybe we can go in the evening would fit better, or whatever was like the change of time. What was the same going to the place, but on a different time, and you were like, oh no, like it really felt because if now we're saying no, then maybe later will happen the same. So, you know,
Yes, that is because it has happened several times. It was not like my imagination, it has happened several times. They would say, like growing up, we would be like, okay, we will go on Sunday to this thing. And then it will change, the program will be changed or postponed to Monday or the next Sunday. And then the next Sunday comes, nothing happens. And that has happened even after I grew up, like in the college or wherever I was before as a group, when we plan and things don't go well. Most of the times, what I've observed is when someone says, oh, we cannot do this and we have to postpone it, it has never happened. The postponing has never happened either. And you also know, like when we work, we planned, what is it called? We planned several picnics,
oh, outings or
outings. None of those happened. Like maybe once or twice it happened in 3 years that we were there. So yeah, and that still has an impact in me. When I was by myself, working in a different place by myself, I didn't have that issue because I would go whenever I wanted to. I would do whatever I wanted to. But when it comes to a group setting or a family setting, and we plan a whole lot of stuff, and then all of a sudden there is a postponing idea comes into the picture, I really hate it. And not necessarily it is because of my imagination, it doesn't happen.
and what are the feelings you have in that moment that makes you like, not want to accept that and like, oh, I hate this change. Or,
Because for me, history is repeating itself again. And I get frustrated because I know it is not going to happen. And even when we wanted to go to the coast, I don't know if you remember it. I remember it. We planned to go, and then we were like, okay, let's give like couple weeks and then we can plan and then we can go, and then it never happened.
Which coast?
Oregon coast.
That then we did another plan, like another trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely that can be a challenge to know that things that are postponed, it's basically canceled. And your expectations, your hopes. Sometimes I think the waiting for something, the expecting, the anticipation, it's so powerful. It's like we are there, but then it's taken out. And so it's like you're left with nothing. And even if it's postponed, which should mean that it will happen, but in a different time, if you know it's basically a cancel sign, then it's like, I anticipated something good. It's like the brownie was there, and it was there, and it was there, and they said for dessert, but then they said no for another day, and then it never came.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. No, that's a big one.
How about you, love?
So just today I realized something about myself because I think maybe as well growing up, but in general through my life I've just felt very happy if we're doing something, a project, just to get started to do it. That for me is so like a highlight. We accomplished this and it's something nice, and then when for some reason it's delayed or it doesn't start when it should be, and then you feel you couldn't do it well, or it just, people were late or they were in other things, and then your plan, your project, it's just kind of left. Then it's like kind of that same feeling, which I didn't realize until today, that we got a little delayed in starting this podcast. And so I was like, no, we won't have enough time. And we had it all planned. And then I was really feeling that, it's not that it will never happen. It won't happen as we wish and as I was anticipating. And so it kind of made me realize sometimes our expectations and our anticipation for what we're expecting, it's postponed or is delayed or is tweaked and changed. And maybe for good reasons. Maybe someone got sick, so now we cannot go to the coast. Or maybe, someone had some things coming on the way, so it was delayed. So it's not like it's the end of the world.
That's true.
But in our hearts, it sinks so deep and it's so frustrating, or call it pet peeve, like you don't like that to happen.
Yes.
That you feel frustrated, and then it's like you had this balloon being inflated and all nice, ready to soar to the heavens, and suddenly it's pinched by, being late or changing plans or readjusting, and then the whole beautiful plan that was going to go up the air is like poof, and then it just deflates, and then you're just not even in the mood to do it. So we had to pray about it.
Yes, we had to. We had
to talk and pray about it, and then be like, you know what, maybe this is the first topic we have to speak about and share openly, because it's a real thing.
Yes. And I think it is helpful that we can mutually agree to pray about it, because if we both have to go by ourselves, we will be going and going and going, and we won't necessarily come to a conclusion, and well-informed conclusion.
I think it's also important to understand each other. Like for me, when you would get frustrated, even if it was postponed a couple hours, an outing, or I was like, why is he so down? And like the end has come. I was like, we're going to do it. Just, it works better logistically. Let's reason together. But it was like no reason, because it was, my bubble was popped.
Bursted. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
So right now, today, I felt like that when we had a specific time that we had agreed to start, and then it was delayed, and then yeah, a couple other things add up, and then I was like, my bubble popped. And then I was deflated, and then I started to think, wow, maybe that's how he feels when we change plans. And then it was like I could understand you a little better by this situation, and hopefully, we can empathize with each
With each
other
other.
a little bit more.
I think so too. I think we can understand each other and empathize for each other in this situation for sure. For sure.
So what's another one?
Well,
Another
another.
challenge, pet peeve, or disappointment or frustration that can come in marriage?
Well, for me, I have a pet peeve on closing the cabinets and the drawers.
Well, that's not so terrible.
For me, no, it is not. It is not like bad, but for me, it has to be closed because sometimes when it is open and then someone bends down and gets up, they will hit their head. It is an unnecessary thing. For me, it is like, why? Why? You could just close it and then do your own things. If I can understand if you have to get several things every few seconds, I understand that. But if you open it, take your stuff that you need, and then you don't close it, I don't know. I feel kind of like an urge to close that. Whether that or whether the drawer. Yeah, yeah, those are the things. So that I don't know if you've noticed it when people open certain doors, like open the cabinet doors or drawers, and then they leave. I make sure that it is closed right away.
Definitely, I've noticed. Also with spoons, like to use the least amount of things. So I don't know if it goes along with that, but I've noticed that as well, that you're particular in certain things to save an accident or save from working too much, washing too much.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I try to use as minimum as possible with all the utensils for cooking, and that I have seen people that use like 15 to 20 spoons just for tasting. Like, oh, let me taste it, throw it away. Taste it, throw it away. Taste it, throw it away.
People like, sometimes I get close to them, no?
I mean, you have done those things, but I have seen more worse than that. I have seen worse than
Yeah,
that.
I'm working on it.
Yeah. So that makes me feel like, who is going to do the all the dishes? Like you keep using, throwing, using, throwing. So that is another thing that I don't get irritated, but I'm like, why do you use so many things? Use as minimum as possible. Even while cooking, while someone is cooking, they use almost all the dishes they have in the kitchen. One thing to cut and one thing to put the chopped up stuff in one bowl and another bowl and another bowl and a couple other plates and all. And by the time they finish cooking, the whole sink is piled up with dishes. I don't like that kind of stuff. I don't know. I mean, maybe that is the right way to do, but for me, I prefer to have a plate, have the chopped up stuff in different sections in the same plate. So using as little dishes as possible while cooking.
Yeah, I guess that's efficient.
Yeah.
Different people have different ways. That doesn't mean there's a right or wrong, but some are more efficient than others.
Yeah.
Than others.
And how about you, love?
I
Is there
have two
anything
things
else?
in my
All
head,
right.
but I'm not sure which one to speak about.
Speak about both.
Okay, so I think another pet peeve or frustration sometimes for me can be like phones and just taking over our life. Like if we get phones, bring them to bed, and then it can get late watching, reading, whatever it might be that we're doing. And I love content that we can have nowadays in phones, but sometimes they can take over our lives with so much requirement to share, to read, to connect, to answer messages, calls, posts, this and that. And so I love to share good, uplifting content for others. I think it's a ministry and it's a blessing. But when social media starts taking your family life, your private life, or even your sanity, like sometimes we don't realize, but we might be way too much on it for whatever reason. And it can really disconnect. And so that feeling of disconnect, and again, this actually comes from my childhood as well. Because for a while, when the laptop came in and everything, my father would do a lot of research, and you know him, he's like a walking encyclopedia. He knows a lot of things, he knows about many things, and he keeps updated and everything. But for a while, it felt like his computer was really like the best friend, the one
Yeah.
constantly
Yeah.
there. And we saw how that impacted the relationship sometimes with my mom. She would feel like resentment towards the computer. And then it was like taking over that family time, that connection. And so I remember actually in a previous relationship that when my boyfriend would be on the phone, I would actually feel such a pain, a loneliness, that I would talk about it to him but cry. And I didn't know why. It was because I had that pain of seeing the disconnect in my parents and in my own family, that the computer and the devices had come in to destroy family life and love and connection. So then I worked through that. I, reframe my thoughts, not to come with tears and so much emotions to talk to someone, but really know where I stand, how I feel. And God healed that part in my heart. Because many times when we cry, it's a way of like something hasn't been healed and it hurts. But then once God healed it, I didn't have all of that emotional reaction, but it was still not something that I like. Even I see that if I'm not careful, I can get in that like addiction mode. And then it's like you're kind of in the rat race of devices and social media. And so I think that's something that has very good things, but also can be a very dangerous thing.
Yeah, I agree with the point where it also has very good things. I think some of us get caught up in those very good things. Oh, it is for learning, or I'm just trying to understand this thing, or with the news, what is happening? Oh, this just happened. Even the other day, not the other day, yesterday, I read this news about King Charles having cancer. I'm like, what? And then you are tempted to go ahead and read the whole thing and what happened, this and that.
It never
It
ends.
never ends. Yeah, everything is attractive and everything is tempting, and you want to read or watch. And that is where I think we have to be more cautious and
Have boundaries as well.
have
And
boundaries.
we've even talked and tried to put it into practice, but it's a day to day, like,
Battle.
yes, and action. Like, you need to be really proactive about it.
Yeah.
And it's really having boundaries that by 8 p.m. or whatever, 7:30, we decide in the evening we will not have our devices controlling us and talking about, things we want to do, but have time to unwind, to be more ready to sleep. Many times insomnia can come as well because of too much devices and your brain is overactive with thoughts and ideas and, so I know for me, the screens and all of that brain activity can really impact my sleep or even give me headaches.
Yeah, I think then in that case, I should also switch to going to old school, put my phone away, far away, and then have books in the bed. So, or books in the nightstand. So, when we do our worship, we are having the physical books, not electronic gadgets. So, that it doesn't keep us awake for a longer time than we intend to. Whereas while we read books, there is no light coming from
Or a
those.
bunch of news included in the book.
Yes, exactly.
It helps you more
Someone
focus.
messages you or sends you a reel or something, and then you're like gone.
Yeah.
But with books, it's going to be more dedicated to what you want to do than others telling.
So that's a huge one that nowadays is a challenging thing to do, but it's if we don't see it and do something about it, it will take over our lives, our marriage, and everything. So yeah, and you had another one to share. If not, I had a second one.
You can share the other one.
The other one, it can be. I think we both sense it in different ways, but I think also coming to understand each other, it can help us, and it's the aspect of when we maybe feel judged by a comment, how do we take it? And for me, I love to try to see some other experience to compare. But I know that that sometimes that has caused some troubles because it has been more like you've sensed that I'm doing tit
for
tat. Tit for tat. Bringing up things. And maybe sometimes it has been like, hey, you do this, so why are you talking to me? But other times it's trying to understand, like even I did it now with you, like, oh, you feel like this, so I feel like this. So then it's like by comparison, it makes a clear picture in my brain. So for me, it is kind of a pet peeve or a frustration when I'm going through something and then I feel you are telling me like, oh, you shouldn't do that, or this shouldn't be like that, and then I feel like I remember other scenarios that I feel are similar, and then I'm like, why is he telling me this? And why? So I don't know. It's an aspect that just came to my mind as that I can feel frustrated, and then I try to find another story to compare it and to come with clarity. But I don't know exactly. Yeah. How? I mean, you can share your thoughts, how you feel, and
when you compare it with the other stories. For me, it does feel like it is a tit for tat. Even like when you preach something, when I preach something and then I come down, they will be like, oh, you're not supposed to do this. You just preached about it, you know? And it would not even be something related to what I was preaching on, but people try to bring that. One time in the school, I was talking about not using God's words or scriptures to make fun of others. And right after finishing that, I came out after giving the presentation. They came like, yeah, we have to be careful. We cannot be mocking with using God's words. And guess what? They were doing the same thing. They were using Bible verses and telling me why I shouldn't be using God's words to mock others while I wasn't even doing that. You know? So sometimes people try to bring stuff that is not even related to just to tell you the same thing that you told them. You know what I mean? So, and that has been very confusing, and it is kind of a pet peeve for me as well, because I'm trying to tell you something and then you're trying to put it back on me. When you're putting it back on me, it's not the same thing that I told you. It's totally different. So it does kind of feel frustrating, like what is this all about? Like another example is I preached about how we shouldn't be trying to be the first in everything, because the Bible says first shall be last and last shall be first. We shouldn't find our value in striving to be first. After preaching, I came and at the church they told visitors can go first. Someone comes and tells me, oh, you just preached that you cannot go first, so please go and stand in the back. You see? And it feels like, how does this match? But that's what I call it, as tit for tat, but not necessarily making sense for me.
I mean, for some might be a way of joking,
Yeah.
maybe not really
Yes.
real. I guess it boils down to truly understanding where each one is coming from. And again, like we said with the other pet peeves or frustrations about being late about a project or changing plans, maybe it would also apply similarly to this reality that, let's say you say something, instead of me trying to compare you in a situation with what you're telling me that I should adjust or change, just really understand what you're meaning and accept what I need to do, and then yeah, maybe it's not even needed to bring another story to compare at that point.
Yeah, if it doesn't make sense, like you don't understand, and I'm not making myself clear, bringing another story to match it will be helpful. But I'm saying something and you do understand what I'm saying, but then bringing another story, it is like an unnecessary added layer that we don't even need. We can solve the issue that we already have, or solve the concern that we already have, instead of
And
bringing another
that's
picture.
probably, it's more like a defensive mode in a way, to try to compare so that the spotlight is not on you, but it goes back to someone else. And probably that's what you also felt like, whoa, why is it thrown back to me now? What am I in the picture of something I was trying to pinpoint to her? And so, well, a lot to learn and grow, because I think that in relationships there's needed a lot of humility, no pridefulness or like, hey, why are you telling me this? And becoming defensive or saying, hey, don't put the spotlight on me, or don't throw the burden, but you are the problem.
Yeah.
Or you have the same issue, but each one taking responsibility.
Yes.
This is my issue and this is what I need to work, but then being open as well to feedback and to be shown areas.
I think I agree with what you said. Each individual has to grow. And when someone points some issue to the person, they shouldn't feel defensive to point it back to them, saying, oh, you did this, and why are you telling me that? Instead, it will be helpful for them to really ask God and search what is in the heart, and why do I do the things that I do, or why is this person pointing it out? Is it really genuine or not? Or they are just making it up. So it'll give us to have a self-realization as to what we are doing. If not, anything someone else tells you or someone else does, we are ready to point it back to them, while it might not necessarily be the same. And I also agree with the example that I shared. There are people that make jokes out of what you share, but there are also people that do not take jokes, but no, I'm sorry. There are also people that tell it and they mean it. It's not, they don't say it as a joke, just so that they don't feel guilty of the things that they do.
Wow, a lot to learn in marriage. A lot of things that Satan can use to make it a big deal and to.
And I think marriage is a right place for us to grow. So when we go out, it won't affect us as much, because we are already trying to grow here. When we grow here, and you don't get offended with what the wife is saying or the husband is saying, you go out, whatever the other person says, it's not going to be as big of an issue as how they see or even you see it. It'll give you time to evaluate and move on.
Definitely starts in the home.
Yep.
That's the real training.
Yes. And if there is anything that you would like to share, please post it in the comment section and let us know what are your thoughts. How would you handle different situations in your marriage or relationships? And if you have any questions as well, please put it in the comment section. And also don't forget to like and share it to your friends and family that you think will be benefited from it. And also, to watch more, please subscribe.
Yes.